morning, everyone. Thank you for the introduction, Sue. So just to give you a very quick overview, I'm going to talk to you about attract, engage, and retain. So to start off with, I'll give you a little bit of a brief introduction to myself, and then we'll get into some of the details. About me. First and foremost, as Sue said, I'm the Global Director of Talent Acquisition at Capita. Hopefully, well, I say hopefully people know Capita. I'm sure Capita is a fairly well-known brand in the market. Actually, last year we hired 27,600 people into the business, so a significant increase on the year before. And alongside that, it was quite interesting to see some of the comments that you were putting up around the challenges you're facing as an industry, because when I started with Capita, I was facing some of the similar issues. And so therefore what I've had to do is I've had to change and look at how we do things to improve them, to then increase the number of applications we're getting to be able to deliver that crazy number of new hires. So what I'm going to share with you today is actually a new brand awareness campaign that I created and that we're in the process of launching. Alongside that, I also have this other sideline business that keeps me busy outside of Capita working hours, called Engage to Succeed. It's a little bit of a hobby for me actually at the moment, but it helps. What I do is I consult and work with people around engagement and how to improve engagement and how to retain people within organisations. And we talked about networking today. I met Ed at Teacup this morning, and it's really interesting that I've met somebody else that has really similar views. So maybe I might be teeing Ed's session up this afternoon for you as well. As you can see on there, I'm really passionate about helping people build a future and build a better future. There are so many people in work that struggle with work, and what I really want to do is help them, because I believe everybody can be successful in something that they want to do. So that's a bit about me. Why did Mark, Sue invite me to speak today? Well, very quickly, there's a little bit of a state of the nation, and this is what Sue mentioned. So some of the figures up there, you probably may well be aware of them, but unemployment at 1.2 million, job availability at 1.12 million. So there's a ratio of basically every unemployed person there is in the UK, there's a job for them if they want it. Now, not every unemployed person can work, and there are some reasons for that. But what's happened over the course of the last 3 months is we've seen a decrease in the number of job vacancies, which is making it actually harder to recruit. So it's not just in the insurance industry, it's across actually all markets, and all business sectors are struggling to recruit because of that. Attrition as well still remains above average. Why? Well, when you look at pay, everybody, and it's up there, everybody knows about the cost of living. It was up on the slides as to some of the challenges that we're facing. Cost of living is going up, inflation is going up. When you look at actual pay rises within organisations, pay rises, as we know, because there's lots of strikes going on at the moment, pay rises are not in line with inflation. So actually the cost for in your pocket is actually reducing year on year. And therefore, and this contradicts a little bit what I said earlier, but actually the best way to get a pay rise in today's market is to go and look for a new job. Because when you go and look for a new job, the chances are you get an increase in pay. And that can be, the averages sit somewhere 8, 10, sometimes above 10%. They're still not quite at inflation level, but you're more likely to be able to get an increase in pay if you go elsewhere. But all of this means there's a challenging landscape for recruitment. You've talked about it, we've put some reasons why up today. And what I want to do today is try and help and give you some ideas and thinking and some of my thinking, some of the things that we've been doing at Capita to help with that. So let's move on to attract. The first point in a life cycle, employee life cycle. Attracting today in the market is incredibly tough. We talked about it earlier. Why? That's the question. Why is it tough? And I'm going to talk you through some of the things that I've seen that actually may give you something at a slightly different perspective. recruiting in the market today is very similar to what the recruiting in the market used to be probably 10, 15, 20 years ago. Some of the methodology that people use today is the same as that I was using when I started in recruitment 20 years ago, worryingly. But we need to think differently. Up the top of the slide, it says we've got to be disruptive, we've got to think differently, and we've got to humanise what we do. So, when we're thinking about attracting, here's a little test for you. Very quickly, write down on a piece of paper, if you were looking for a job, what would you be looking for in a new job? What are the top 3 things that you would be looking for in a new job? You don't have to write it down, but just have a think about it. The top 3 things, what do people want when they look for a job? And it was really interesting because some of these things came up on your slides. Money, cost of living crisis, people want an increase in their pay. That's probably one of the most important things people look for when they look for a new job. They want career development. How many times do people move for a lateral move? Very rarely. People always want to ideally move and step up a little bit. And this is the one that's changed over the years. Today's market dictates more flexibility and well-being. They want to see it in an organisation. 20 years ago, that probably wasn't on this list. But now it is because of everything that's happening in the marketplace. So those are the 3 things that people are looking for. How do we attract them? Now, I've said a minute ago that nothing has really changed from an attraction perspective. So actually, let's think about it slightly differently. When we think about brand marketing, what's the difference between brand marketing and candidate marketing? Here's a little test for you. Who remembers some of these? Remember those? Yeah? Some nods? What about this one? People know what that one is? Yeah? Some more nods. And finally, that one. Everyone knows the airline, right? So what's the difference? The difference is, in none of those can you see a brand. None of those you can see a company. Yet historically, what we do when we attract people to organisations is we often lead with the company. Come and work for Capita. Do we think differently? Why do these resonate with people? Because they're different, because they click, because it's almost humanising the brand to kind of have some kind of relevance to the individual. And this is what I started thinking about when I was thinking about attracting people to Capita. And thinking, how do we lead from a human perspective? Take away the Capita brand name and think about it from a human perspective. What's it like to work here? What are the people like at Capita? What is it that's going to attract people in? Is it going to be the Capita brand? Susie, close your ears a little bit. But no, it's not going to be the Capita brand. Does anyone know what Capita used to be called in the marketplace? Anyone brave enough to share it? Huh? Crapita, yes. Crapita was the brand that Capita was. We couldn't lead with the Capita brand. So, through some of my thinking, working with our agency, I came up with this campaign called Be Brilliant, Be You.
We welcome all characters. The early birds, thoughtful listeners, happy chatters, and proud grandparents. The dreamers that inspire us, forward thinkers that drive us, and the strong spirits who challenge us to do things differently. We welcome everyone, because you're more than just your experience, more than a glittering CV, more than a hard worker, more than all the best buzzwords. You're the one with that special something, the right stuff, the one who likes to ask questions, find answers and connect the dots, the one who believes in those around you as much as you believe in yourself. And you do it all while being unapologetically you. Whether that means being loud, quiet, full of laughter, or something else entirely, we'll encourage you to be you. All day, every day. so that you can be brilliant. Capita. Be brilliant. Be you.
So you can see from the video, everybody in that video is a Capita employee doing something that they love to do outside of work, doing something maybe that's in work. But everybody was a Capita employee on that video. And it was about talking about, this is what we want, a variety of people. Everybody's welcome. It doesn't matter your background. It doesn't matter what skills you have, what experience you have. We're looking for the right behaviors, the right people to join the business. And that's the launch video that we've launched externally to try and encourage people to come back. Interestingly enough, the day that it was launched, one of the people directors at Capita got an email from somebody that used to work at Capita. They said, I've just seen the video. Can we have a conversation? It looks like the business is fundamentally changed from a cultural perspective. I want to come back. So just by seeing the video, it's changed perceptions and it's changed the view of what Capita is like as an organisation. It's followed up with a whole host of other attraction. The video is obviously a very good one to share. But what we're doing as well is we're doing a lot more programmatic advertising. We're doing a lot more pushing out of information. We've got a whole host of banners. We've got a whole host of adverts that is encouraging people from different backgrounds to come and have a conversation with us. So Attract is already seeing an increase in numbers coming through. So then the next thing is engage. We get them in the door. We don't want to lose them, so you've got to engage with them. And this is, for me, this is the second part of my thinking, which is around how do you engage with people? I'm very clear that when we talk about engagement, I mean, I don't know how many people do engagement surveys here, but engagement surveys is the traditional route and the traditional method to do a pulse check on how engaged the workforce is. Forget it. It's a bold statement. Ed will agree with me on this one because we had a conversation about it this morning. But in my view, forget the survey. And I'll show you for why in a minute. Think more about effective communication. How do you communicate with people effectively, more regularly, more of the time? And how do you individualize it rather than organizationalize it? It's a big word, organizationalize. Mark was struggling with it for a few days. But how do you individualize things more? Second question to you. When we think about an engagement survey, what are the top 3 things that come out of engagement surveys? There they are. Can you see some similarities here? Everybody in an engagement survey, the majority of the time, people talk about, money as an issue. If we can give people more money, we could engage them more. Is that true? Questionable. Development, career development, training, that always comes out. And again, flexibility and well-being is the third thing that comes out. All of those 3 things tend to come out of most engagement surveys, but engagement surveys tend to be a point in time. You do them once a year, you do them twice a year. And I've always said that actually 3 things will happen with an engagement survey when you send it out. 1, people won't fill it in because they don't want to, because they're not engaged. 2, they will fill it in and they will tell you what they think you want to hear. So it won't be truthful. And the reason they'll do that is through fear of repercussions. Everyone says they're anonymous, they are anonymous, but people don't believe it. Or 3, they tell the truth. So if you've got a population of 30,000 people and you think a third don't fill it in, a third complete it and lie, and a third give you the truth, actually you're only getting 10,000 people that are actually telling you the truth, and it's a point in time. It's not actually how they're feeling every day of the year. So this comes back to as well, then once an organisation has that data, they then come up with plans, they come up with action plans, they organisationalise the output rather than individualise the output. So I created a model called the 3 Ps of engagement. The concept of this model is to talk to people about engagement all the time. Not yearly, not quarterly, not half yearly, but almost weekly. Let me talk you through it. It's quite a simple model. On the left-hand side, you've got passions, both personal and work. Personal passions actually do come into work. If you're not fulfilling your passions outside of work, it will affect you in work. And performance along the bottom. And it looks like this. If your passions are low and your performance is low, you're stuck in a rut. You can't get out. It's a horrible place to be. If your passions are high and you're achieving them, but your performance is low, you're on the up. And the reason you're on the up is usually when you're in that situation, you're in a new job. So you're really enthusiastic about what you're doing, you've just been promoted, but your performance isn't quite where it should be. The third box is where your performance is high, but your passions aren't being met. And this is a roller coaster ride. Most people have been in this box. Some days you have really good days, like today, right? You're all here, you're having a great time, you're out of work, you're at a conference, you're looking forward to all the speeches today, you're going to take something away, you're having a really great day. But tomorrow you've got to go back and you've got to deal with those 200 emails that came in today that you haven't had time to deal with. So you're dipping a little bit. So the roller coaster ride is where most people sit. And then you've got two things that will happen there. You'll either quit and stay if it's not addressed, which means you go into stuck in a rut, which means your life becomes a little bit miserable every day. Or if it's not addressed, you go the other way and you quit and leave. This population of people are possibly one of the most effective populations of people in your organisations. They deliver a whole host of work for you. You do not want them to go that way or that way. You want them to go that way into flying high, which is where you are fully engaged, highly productive, and you're enjoying work. And the 3 Ps simply works that says, if you're hitting your high levels of passion, you're hitting your high levels of performance, you're going to be increasing your productivity to the organisation. If you're increasing your productivity for the organisation, you're probably increasing your productivity, which means you're probably in some cases increasing your revenue, increasing your profit, making your shareholders happy. With an engagement survey, you're probably not doing that because your engagement survey your ENPS, your employee net promoter score might be going up, but it doesn't necessarily say that your revenue, your profits and everything are going up as well. So you need to increase passion and performance to get productivity. So that's my model. I talk about it and I say managers should be using this and thinking about this all the time. It's individualized. Where do each one of you, every one of you, sit on that model? That's the question that I ask myself when I'm at work or when I'm in work, to say, where do I sit? What's driving me to sit in that box and what do I need to change to get up into that box? Interestingly enough, Ed will talk about maybe something this afternoon that could link back to this that might be helpful for you. So, the final session or section here is about retain. So we've hired them, we've engaged with them, we now want to retain them. What do you think are the 3 top things that drive people to leave an organisation? Guess what? They're the same. Because that's actually what people are looking for. But ultimately, they are the same. So what we have to think about here is, as an individual, whether you're looking for a job, whether you're engaged, or whether you're maybe wanting to be retained, from a manager perspective, the same 3 reasons are the same across all areas of the employee life cycle. Why doesn't this work? That's the question. Why doesn't it work? And I talk about it again. I talk about individualizing the process. It often doesn't work because as an organization, and I see it at Capita, right? I've seen it in multiple organizations that I've worked over the years. People come up with organizational strategies. If I went round this room and asked every single person in this room what motivates you and what are your aspirations and what are your passions, I would probably get, I don't know how many people there are in here, but 150 different answers. Because everybody has a slightly different view on what it is that engages them, what it is that drives them. So when we think about this, it comes back to regular communication and giving people the model, Engagement model, something to hang their hat on, to have a conversation about on a regular basis, but you must individualize it to your employees. You might have frameworks that are organizational frameworks, but you have to individualize it. And this is where we talk about career development. If you want to retain your best people, or you want to retain people, you've got to give them a focus. Again, most organizations have personal development plans. Most organizations talk about development. What do you want to do this year? And that's where it stops. What do you want to do this year? Not this month that's going to then lead to the following month, to the following month, to then get you to where you want to be at the end of the year. It tends to be, what do you want to do this year? And then you leave it and you don't have conversations beyond there. So I talk about this. It's a career development and journey. It's a plan. You know, you have to review the plan, the career plan with your individuals. You have to identify the development areas. You need to create that plan. And then the hard bit starts. The hard bit is implementing it with key milestones, regular conversations, and review and recalibration. If you do the first half of that cycle and you don't do the second, it will fail. It's so important that you do the whole cycle. And actually, you should review it on an ongoing basis. When we talk about recalibration, how often should we recalibrate? You could go to one extreme and say recalibrate every week in your one-to-one with your people and say, actually, how you're doing. It's probably a little bit too much, but definitely recalibration needs to happen on an ongoing basis. Doesn't stop there, though. There is then 3 key things that sit in the middle. The first one is the individual. You can have all of the tools and the techniques as an organisation, but the individual sits at the heart of this conversation. Everybody has probably developed up in their career to where they are today because of the work that they've put into their career. Again, the process has to be owned by the individual. And they have to drive it, they have to own it, and they have to be accountable for it. Now, that only works in organisations with the other 2 boxes. The first one on the right-hand side, the dark blue box, is that the organisation has to create some kind of pathway, some kind of framework, something. The organisation has to support it with some kind of structure. That's the only part that I talk about from an organisational perspective. That could be a pathway. I don't know if anyone's got career pathways. That could be tools, that could be apps, that could be something to help engage and help that conversation. The organisation, though, needs to have that framework. The final box there is the most important one in my mind, that the manager needs to support it. If the manager doesn't have regular conversations with people, if the manager doesn't support and encourage that development, create milestones, create development for people, again, you're going to struggle to retain people because actually people will go, I'm not getting the support here. The organisation is not setting me up for success. My manager isn't supporting me. Therefore, I'm going to go and look elsewhere. So, those 3 boxes in the middle are hugely important. Individual needs to own it, manager needs to support it, but the organisation as well has to have some kind of structure that sits behind it. And if you do that on a regular basis, that's how you help to retain. We talk about new generation, it's slightly easier because if a new generation come in, often we talk about apprenticeships, we talk about graduates, we talk about programs that they are formally following to become qualified. But this works, again, even harder sometimes when it comes to employees that aren't the new generation. But it's a really great thing to be thinking about when you're thinking about new generation. So, in summary, 3 key things. Humanise it. Make it genuine. Put your people at the heart of your attraction campaigns. Put the people at the heart of what you're doing. Nick was talking about his career. And this is the best job he's ever had. Right, so we take Nick, we create a case study about why this is the best job that he's ever had, and we go out and we take that to the marketplace, and hey, we suddenly get loads of people that want to be Nick. Right? Same thing happens in all of your industries. You've probably got loads of people that are hugely successful, that have grown up through the organisation. we said that once people come into insurance, they stay in insurance. Let's tell those stories. Why is it that makes it so brilliant to stay? Why do people stay? Humanise it. Individualise it. Put the individual at the heart of every conversation. And this is the big one. De-organisationalise it. It's a mouthful, that one. But you've got to have the framework. But if you want to engage and you want to retain people, you need to de-organisationalise things. Stop becoming corporate structured and start putting people at the heart of everything. So, in summary, gone on too far. Individualise rather than organisationalise. Development has to be owned by the individual. Doesn't matter what you do, you can't own that for the individual. The individual has to own it. But the business needs to support it. The way you support it is by making people accountable, though. Make them accountable for the actions that you need them to do to get them up to the next level. Create consistent communication on a regular basis around this topic. And build an environment. Psychological safety is a really difficult thing to... How do you build psychological safety? It's a really difficult thing to do. You do it just by having regular conversations, regular communications. You know, if you think back to the 3 Ps model, I've sat there with my team and I've said, this is where I am today. So if I'm a bit short and I'm a bit stroppy, that's the reason why. So be open yourselves around where you are, that then helps them to be open of where they are. And the bottom thing at the beginning, just say, remember that it doesn't matter whether you're looking, whether you're engaged, or whether you're trying to retain people, the 3 things are constant. Money, always a difficult thing to overcome. Career and development, and flexibility and well-being, some of which I know there are speakers that are going to talk to you about later today. And that is the end. Thank you very much for listening.
Wait here. So, sounds easy. Or the logic is easy. I guess the hard work starts in terms of implementing that. Just out of interest, out of all the thousands and thousands of Capita employees that you have, how did you get them to audition for the Be Brilliant Be You? What was the process?
Do you know what? It started with us thinking, oh, we'll just create something using stock images. And we said, it's just not going to work with stock images. I just went out to the business and I said, we're doing this campaign. This is the concept of it. We need your help. If we're going to change the messaging externally, we need to do it with real people. And we got, I don't know, 52,000 people work at Capita. We got about 160 images through. Wow. In 1 week. Okay. To get there, and we chose the best ones out of all of them. Okay. But it was just, you know, sometimes by asking, you get. Yeah. And it's the same with...
Humanise, ask the question.
Humanise, ask the question, and you're amazed at what comes back. Okay.
Well, thank you. So we've had a few questions coming in. We'll just try and get through a couple of them, just mindful of time. So, Nick, what have you got for us?
Yeah, so very popular, James. I normally struggle for questions, but I was just going to pick up on what you were saying about me saying best job in the world, and one of the words that jumped out straight away was community. Yeah. Feeling part of a community, and I think that it's what ILC does, but I think the claims industry, which is why it retains people, it is a big community, and I think that's really powerful. Yeah. But that wasn't a question. So how do you embed D&I when hiring in such high volumes?
That's a good question, actually, because I think I can break it down into various different areas. So if you think about Capita as an organisation, the contact centre world, do we have a problem when it comes to D&I in that environment? And the answer to that question is actually we don't, because we have such a lot of untapped marketplaces, and the world of COVID has helped us with that, because we're now starting to look at socioeconomically deprived areas as an example to say, where can we attract from that then brings people in from those areas? Secondly, you know, we just get a huge diverse pool of people that apply. The struggle we have is when we go up through the organisation, and it's often the same. But again, when we talk about Capita and when we look at DE&I at a more senior level, we always look at presenting diverse slates or diverse candidates to all of our roles. And actually that's the way in which we drive it. We have huge, as part of the attraction process, we have a huge amount of work that we do around our employee network groups. We promote our employee network groups. That also drives diversity as well. So that we do a lot of stuff internally that we use externally to then attract a much more diverse workforce.
Excellent. I think we've got time for one more, and this is a really, really good question actually. Do you consider flex and well-being to broadly include culture and things like working for a responsible business?
Yes, is the short answer to that. I think you have to have, when we talk about flexibility and well-being, and when you then look at it internally, you have to have the right strategies, the right structures internally to be able to then deliver against it. So what I mean by that is when we think about responsible business, when we think about net zero, when we think about all of those things around responsible business, absolutely they drive flex and well-being. Secondly, though, you have to have the infrastructure to enable you to also have flexibility as well. We have Dr. Charles leads our well-being strategy for the business. We have so much stuff and so much focus on well-being as an organisation that it does help us to address that. Even our engagement survey will say we want more. But there is also a limit to what you can do. And again, it varies between the different areas of the business. In contact centres, it's very difficult sometimes to give the same amount of flexibility and well-being as you can in a non-volume professional role, because they are challenged with call times, etc., etc. But again, we're changing that dynamic.
Excellent. I think
we have had a few more questions, so if you've asked a question, we've not had a chance to do it, please find James. You're with us for the rest of today?
I'm with you until probably the end of lunch, because I've got to get on to calls this afternoon.
So if we grab James at lunch, if you've got another question, but for now, I'd just like to say thank you very much to James.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.